All Hit Radio.
All right, you're listening to All Hit Radio, and it's 53 degrees. Right now on our All Request line, I've got Mike Ledgerwood on the phone. Hey, babe, what would you like to hear?
We are observing your Earth.
Listen, Mike, I'm sorry, babe, but we can't...
And we'd like to make...
I'm sorry, Mike, there's...
contact with you.
Collision course. On Revolution Radio.
We're about to begin a journey through the cosmos. We'll encounter galaxies and suns and planets, how the cosmos has shaped our evolution. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Francis.
I have a whole group of great guests tonight. Next is going to be John Zaskoda from the new show StrangerAdvice on American Freedom Radio. He's got me coming on once a week every Wednesday in the afternoon as a astronomical advisor. The reason I presume and understand that he asked me to do that for him because they don't really believe in influencing or supporting a doom and gloom theory. Doesn't really feel like there's a need for it. There's enough real doom and gloom. Now, while the research toward the events that may cause the end of the human race is warranted, there should always be somebody out there looking for it. I don't believe people should be shouting that the end of the world is coming until they know for sure. John's on. We're going to introduce you to John Zaskoda and a little bit about the new show StrangerAdvice on AFR.
Hey, Francis, what's up? I'm here.
Hi, John. How are you, my friend?
Oh, dude, I'm loving it. Every bit of it. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Listen, I think I'm getting a little feedback on you. I don't know if you have speakers up or not. I don't know where it's coming from. Just turn down just make me feel good. Turn down the sound a little bit, as long as you can hear me. I apologize for any stumbles. This is the second show I've actually produced through the radio station servers. I'm taking advantage of being thrown out into the deep end with the sharks and the automatic server, and I'm just running with it. You know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem.
Tell me about StrangerAdvice before I even ask about it. And if the listeners don't know, John Zaskoda had a premiere show today on American Freedom Radio. The show is called StrangerAdvice. He asked me to become one of the correspondents / advisors for the show because he has a great group of individuals besides myself who come on and speak on their specialty items. And John has put together a fantastic show. And tell us how it went today and what you thought, where the future is going to go with it, and what's the hot topic for you?
Well, first, thanks for having me on your show. You know, astronomy has been something that's always been a fascination of mine, and as I started to get into this whole genre of media, what I found was that it all led back to space, and so having you on my show is a great asset to me. But StrangerAdvice is really a concept that grew from seeing all of the people that are on YouTube and common media, not so much on TV, but what people like to refer to New Age as alternative media people, talking about specifically the common Elenin, Planet X, the work of Zachariah Ascension. Now that you've got Discovery Channel putting on, or the History Channel rather, putting on Ancient Aliens, and there's all of these shows are starting to perpetuate a thought that is becoming very popular, and that's what's out there.
Hey, I have a question. You
Sure.
said his name. Zachariah Stitchin, did he ever work, or was he just pulling our leg?
Well, I'm not an expert, so I will tell you that in my opinion, which I've read a majority of everything he's written, I think that, you know, he really believed he was onto something. I think it's very possible that through the work of people like Graham Hancock and maybe some of the other people who've had the opportunity to take advantage of the technological and advances in the internet and things maybe that were beyond his generation, I think they've probably gotten a better understanding. But I don't think he was out to pull anybody's leg. I don't think he was out to misdirect people or solely sell paperbacks. I really don't believe that was his, because, you know, the man was just there was too much history there. There's too much behind his work, and he always stayed true to the science. He never changed his story. He always, if he did, he always did it without the prompt of any sort of incident or debunking on, to his fault. He always really stayed true to the historical facts, and you got to give him that.
He did eventually start acquiring some wealth from his ideas. I think that as soon as sometimes money gets involved, somehow it gets tainted, and that's my initial interpretation of.
Well, and I think that's fair enough, but with all due respect to anybody out there, it's real easy to say that from this side of the fence, but everybody's got to pay their bills, and face it, the man was a very popular author, and there's no doubt that he's going to get some Benjamins from it, so I don't think that, especially I guess what I'm saying is that too many people tend to let that skew their image of his career and his work. But you have to pay attention to all the years that the man spent, with sand under his fingernails, that he wasn't popular and he wasn't selling books in order to be able to write those. And I think that's the...
Yeah, well, if I spent a lot of years out in the sand and I couldn't figure out anything, I'd make something up too. But that's just me. That's the sinister aspect. Listen, what's coming up next on the show? When is the show next? This just because a part of me having you on today was, to thank you for having me on, and then to also together, because we have similar listener bases, and they're all interested. All these folks are interested in the same similar things. When is your show on next?
Well, right now, at least until the beginning of the year, we know that we're on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 1 to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, listen, here's the thing, and this is why you fit so well. I think you were saying this to your audience earlier, and you asked what's coming up. I'll tell you what's coming up. A realistic evaluation of some of the stuff that's out there that people are looking at. The great thing about you, Francis, the great thing about the other people that are on my show, Nina and Crystal, they're all normal people who are doing real-world gumshoe detective work. These aren't people that are getting their research from YouTube. And that what was so attractive about what you do is that, you don't look through the YouTube telescope. You look through yours in your own observatory, and you understand the ins and outs.
John, so, I did pull in another caller. I'm gonna say, John, I really appreciate you bringing me on to your show, and you're right about that, but I want to also support that all the information that's on the YouTube, if used in a reasonable manner, there's a lot of information, great information, gleaned off YouTube, similar to mine. So unfortunately, it really comes down to the state of mind of research, state of mind of listener, state of mind of reporter. And sometimes you have a confluence of events where all the wrong things come together, and then very unoften you get a confluence of all the right things going on. And see, that's why I joined the team with you, because I respect your views, and I really like the fact of bringing a bunch of people together. But, and if something comes up where I don't agree, I'm just going to have to say it the way it is.
Well, and that's what it's all about, because, Francis, this is about learning, and you don't learn one way. You learn from a bunch of different directions. But, hey, I know you got another caller on the line. Thank you so much for having me. And, again, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, or you can download the iPhone app from there. And, of course, I'm hoping that when you're on, it'll be able to be simulcast through Revolution Radio.
It was today.
And we'll worry about, today was so awesome. Thank you, Revolution, for doing that. And, I look forward to talking to you again next Wednesday.
Okay, well, stick around. Wayne Young, LUCUS911, is about 4 minutes away. I'm going to take this caller. I think I know who it is. And thanks for coming on and talking to us tonight, John.
Hey, take care. Thanks a lot, y'all.
We'll see you later.
All right, thanks, Francis. Don't let them hang up on me, please.
Listen, it's me. I control it. You have a total of 3 minutes before I pull in Lucas.
All right, cool. I appreciate that. Okay, real quick. Isn't it true that if there was a heavy mass object on the other side of the sun in relation to where the Earth is, that Mars and the other planets that are already on that side of the sun, wouldn't they be affected by this heavy mass object?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Coptic and and Carol, they have no explanation for why those planets are not being affected. Is that correct?
They haven't been able to show you the object in the solar system. The day they can do that, the day the story changes.
Exactly. Now, you look through a telescope, and they don't. Is that correct?
I don't know exactly what they do, but I know the telescopes they use are better than theirs.
Exactly. Use the GRAS telescope.
Well, our own telescopes add up to about almost 1,000 millimeters in aperture. So it's right. Our telescopes here are nothing to sneeze at. That's probably the best way for Nighthawk to take care of the bills that the station creates. Other than that, you have links and banners usually on top of the chat room. You have okay. Lucas, I want to thank you again for coming on, and we're not over. I just want to thank you again.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. It's been great. Normally what happens for me at the beginning of the week, if you know radio, a lot of times you don't know what's going to happen until it happens. And I do really appreciate your research, and I want to cover a couple of things, because people are going to ask me a pointed question, and I'll tell you what the pointed question is going to be. There's another friend and listener of the radio show called Torello3, and Torello3 is a friend of mine. It means we can converse and we have conversations, and it just doesn't go down into shouting matches. In the past, I have really given Torello3 a hard time for his views, and especially with the comet Olenin, because he was just abject. He was just wrong. And even after I brought my photos to him, and he should know that I'm just an honest guy trying to help him with his work, Terrell was unfortunately totally refused to learn anything from his point of view. Lucas is a different person. Okay, I get from him personally that if he was to make an announcement about something, and I was to go and do some research and come back and have a valid point to make to him, I feel that Lucas is a person who is still learning. Terrell will say that he's still learning, but he's very focused on his hypothesis. Lucas has spent a lot of time for us, the listeners, the people who watch his videos. I do not really... Lucas, let me ask you yourself, are you a leader of a group?
No. Okay. No, I guess you could say I'm more the lone wolf. I don't jump on any bandwagons. That's why I didn't say anything about Comet Elenin. I don't join groups or causes. I'm not into all that stuff. I'm just myself.
Well, I'll tell you myself that when I first got all involved in this, I was trying to find groups of people who were going to help me learn about, get up to speed, basically. I don't have a whole decade or two behind me, so I had to catch up to speed. I involved myself with some groups because there are some proponents, researchers who have groups, and they'll take in people and they'll tell you what they believe. And it was through this process that, and I'll tell you honestly, Lucas, back in May, when someone told me the comet that I was trying to take pictures of was a brown dwarf, I'll just tell you personally that I just thought it was a crock, okay? Totally, just couldn't be. There's just no way. And that statement in itself sent me on my way and brought me to where I am today. Good or bad, my opinion has always been, and I feel like I get it from you too, in the beginning it was more about informing ourselves. And somehow through the process, we found that it was important for us to share our information with others.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Joe. I'm just going to... The minute you or I refuse to learn a new aspect or, take on new information and either confirm our beliefs or have to change our beliefs, the minute we stop doing that is the minute we stop doing a service to the public. Okay?
Exactly. You said it right there, and that's the thing. That's why I never believed Elenin was it either, because of the fact that a brown dwarf star, you're not going to see it. You could see Comet Elenin, and you're not going to see a brown dwarf star. That's why I try and tell everybody that you're not going to be able to see it. It absorbs light. When photons of light hit a brown dwarf star, they actually absorb into it and don't reflect. The only reason people can see things is because the light reflects off of the object into your eyes. And so if you have an object that's not reflecting light, it's just going to appear as a big black disk.
I have a question for you. Maybe a hard question, maybe not a hard question. What do you tell yourself or how do I ask the question right? What if nothing happens on 188 days?
Thank God.
Thank God, And then, is there anything? Where do you leave it, though? You know, does it just get left off, and do we wait? I mean, and I only say that because I hate to create a great volume of information for it to fizzle out. Now, I totally hope that nothing happens, and I suppose that's the way. If that's the way it's supposed to be, that's the way it's supposed to be. I do respect you for doing the research. I think you know, and I'm using another person to compare you with, and that's how, as humans, we make comparisons, we make our decisions from those comparisons and move on. I think you're a totally different person and a totally different frame of mind than some people who are, you know, saying, you know, putting out the same warnings. And I think I feel better about talking to you. And again, if in the future, like let's say this event comes to pass, and that sooner or later these objects it will come into view. I feel like with you, I could actually interact with you, and I could actually, you know, have an interaction that matters. Where with some folks who are telling us their research, you know, it's their way or the highway. And again, I'll go back to the minute you stop learning from other people, or at least willing to understand that this universe is very big, and there is no such thing as normal in this large universe, that just, the minute you stop learning, the minute you refuse to step off your assumptions of whatever you're assuming is the day that you show everybody you're unable to be a good reporter of the news.
Well, yeah, you know, one of my biggest things is how can I put this? I hate to fearmonger, and I don't want to have anybody change their life based upon what I said and possibly have me be wrong, and then have them be somewhere, like say up in the Ozarks, homeless, you know, their kids are getting taken away by foster care. I would hate to be that guy that caused them to do that. And that's why I try my best to stay away from, you know, saying, you know, run to the hills and do all this. I tell people, you know, it's probably not safe being by the oceans. You know, within 100 miles of the ocean is probably not a very safe bet. And I get asked all the time, constantly, where should I go? What should I do? And I tell people, you know, I can't really answer that question because, you know, I don't want to be the guy to tell you to do something with your life. It's your own destiny to do what you think is right.
Excuse me, exactly. And, you know, for my own personal self, back in the beginning of the year, what it did is it made me prepare a little bit more. Because even though I proved to myself that something traumatic wasn't going to occur in the next 90 days, it shocked me enough to look into my pantry and think about it. And so I want listeners to think about it. I don't want listeners to get corralled into one way of thinking. I still want them to be able to have an open mind because, as you all know, the research continues. And it's not just one-sided. And though I'm here speaking with Lucas and we're having a conversation about 188 days, and you may have heard me chew Terrell out before, I feel that there's a difference in the fact that Terrell, the only way to, you know, it's like almost, you know, I hate to say this, it's almost like arguing with your wife or whatever. You know, sometimes you got to say something really bad to get their attention. And
well,
so,
let me give you a perfect instance. You know, I go on the John Moore show quite often, and he had one of his listeners was in Germany and basically had bought into the whole Comet Elenin was going to cause the end of the world thing and all that. And this guy took all of his money, and he came over here to the United States and ran to the hills at that time, and basically wasted all of his money for nothing. And that's why I hate, you know, fear-mongering and all that stuff, because of the fact that, you know, it's already tight enough in people's wallets. People are already struggling enough to get by. They don't need to be wasting money on bullcrap things that aren't amounting to anything.
I just thought of something else. Listen, when we were getting the reports of the Brown Dwarf Star earlier in the year, you know what they were reporting? They were reporting an ELE event. That kind of thing says everybody's going to get it. Everybody's going to get sucked. Everybody's going to get it. And that brought up a good point in my question in my head just now. I mean, are we on the verge of an ELE event, or are we on the verge of something like Japan again? Will it maybe even get a little worse? I get the feeling that maybe this spring might not be as close to the object as we would need to be to have the questionable ELE event. Do you agree with that? I mean, so if I was to try to wrap my brain around the whole process and see where this object would need to be in order to affect us to the extent of being an extinction level event, I'm almost, past this March, because for this March to be the horrid ELE event, I feel the object just is not in the right place. It would put it in too close, and there isn't enough astronomical data to say orbits are being perturbed yet, because we're only a couple months out. So, let's say if this next March is just another bad earthquake, I still think we're probably a whole 365 days away. That object needs to travel another year before we get to a recurring event that turns into an ELE event. Do you know where I'm going with that?
Oh, and I agree thoroughly. I don't think that the big event's going to happen this March. I think if anybody wants to get up a small prediction out of me, I think that between March 20th and March 27th, we have a very heightened chance of a major earthquake on the Pacific Plate. Probably somewhere, the only places that really haven't got hit by big ones are Alaska, Washington State, or California.
Anywhere in the United States, because I looked at all the numbers, too. I just did the whole research. There ain't nothing really, I don't see United States anywhere in that long list very much at all.
Yeah, and so basically I think that we're probably going to experience another major earthquake come March, and that, what's interesting is that a lot of people don't put together is the fact that the Georgia Guidestones were erected on March 22nd, 1980. Well, exactly 33 years, we all know the significance of 33, from 1980 would be March 22nd, 2013. So what better way than to trick the public in order to promote the hypothesis of the Mayan calendar and then have the day pass and nothing happen? And everybody's like, oh, I'm done with all this malarkey, this end of the world doom stuff. And then that's when it all goes down after everybody, kind of throws up their arms and says, forget it.
So I guess we're left with this. If this March event occurs, which I would signify in order to be an event, is somewhere 187, 188, 189, something over a 7.0, I would, something over 7.0, because those are the numbers I went with. But if that occurs and it continues on the 188-day timeline, it foretells something worse.
Oh, most definitely. And it should actually speed up. If you look at a binary orbit between two large objects, when they start to get closer together, they start to speed up. So that pattern should change as time goes by.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too. So as it's interacting more with other objects and getting pulled or pushed or pulled or moving faster, perihelion or what have you, these timelines could shorten down to 130, 110, 75 days.
Yeah, because if you go on to NASA's website and look for animations of binary orbits, you'll notice that when they reach the farthest part of their orbit, they almost basically stop. They come, it's like when you roll a ball up a hill and the ball rolls up the hill and then it stops and then comes back the other direction. That's kind of like what happens with the orbits. When the objects are really far away from each other, they're going really slow. But when they get close, the gravity's pulling harder and harder, so they speed up in their orbit as they make their little dance around each other.
All right, I have another question. I'm full of questions. Is there a possibility that the object could not be in a interactive orbit with the sun, but a similar orbit? So two stars are orbiting separate circles. Is there a possibility this object, if there is an object, 180 days, is it possible that object will never actually interact with the solar system? Or
well, I'm sure it's possible, but when you look at the ancients, they describe something, so that would tell you that the object probably is in a binary orbit. And they're also, one thing that's suppressed in science is there are a lot of scientists that believe that the sun is in a binary orbit with another star. And also, it also explains the precession of the equinoxes, where now they have to use a bunch of mumbo-jumbo calculations, and they have to add stuff in order to explain precession of the equinox. The binary orbit would explain it perfectly, and anybody can watch a documentary called The Great Year. Just go to Google and type in The Great Year and watch that documentary, and they do a really good job of showing in animation and graphical form how the binary orbit works.
Basically, if anybody doesn't know, what I gathered from that is, in order to have precession like we do with our wobble and all, the sun has to be moving, right? That's basically what we get down to. The sun is moving through the the space medium, and in order for it to be moving, it must be going somewhere. And the assumption would be that it is orbiting its twin star, because 85% of the other stars in the universe have a twin, and most of them being a dwarf star of some kind.
Yeah, and we might even, for all we know, we could be in a trinary orbit. There's a lot of trinary orbits out there. So it really all boils down to, just watching what's going on, getting stocked up on food and supplies, and making sure you know how to, take care of yourself in an emergency, and don't be that person that, the one that goes to the store after all the stuff is gone, because that person is going to be the one that's going to be beating on other people's doors, begging for food, and the more people that prepare, the less we're going to have to deal with those kind of people.
You know what I did? I think as soon as I decided I was going to get my 90 days of dry goods, I have a map of all the bulk storage warehouses around my house in Houston. I'm not going to the store, baby. The hell with the store. Okay, so listen. We covered a lot of information tonight, and of course I've thanked you many, many times. We still have 30 minutes left of the show. I know where you are. You're in the mountain time zone. You're in Colorado Springs. Have you gone out physically and put your hand? In fact, you must have, right? Because you did all the research on the facilities in Denver, the Denver International Airport. You must have then physically. And the reason why I ask, because I haven't really talked to anybody. You've physically gone out there and put your hands on some of these objects and taken your own pictures, haven't you?
No, actually, I've never been to the Denver airport. I've avoided that place like the plague. I don't want to. I don't want to go anywhere near that place. What I've done is I've basically researched, other people's photos and things like that of the airport, and yeah, I'm a little leery about going up there because you never see what I think is happening. Is I think the elites are going to clamp down on those who are the people that are like, oh, go kill the elites, go kill the elites. Yeah, of course they're going to hunt those people down first, and I'm not going to be that person. I'm trying to avoid those guys because they've not only got some power, but they've got a system set up in place. People don't have no idea how much you're being tracked. When I first came out with the first presentation, they made it abundantly clear how much they were surrounding me. And when you can't mistake it. If a person may see a coincidence, but when they decide to focus that Eye of Sauron on you, you cannot mistake that you are being tracked. Yes. Oh my God! Because they come out of everywhere. Basically, all at once, everything I had got hacked. All my computers, my cell phone, bank account, my identity, everything. I started getting weird text messages, and I proved my roommate at the time didn't believe that people could hear what you were saying, what I was saying on the phone, and so I proved it to him. I basically took the battery out of my phone, and then I told them, hey, I'm going to prove to you once and for all, so you shut the heck up about this. I said, I'm going to prove to you that they're listening to me. And I put the battery back in my cell phone, and basically what they had done is they had got this girl to spy on me who was, trying to act like she was intimately interested. And so I put the battery back in my cell phone, and I told him, I said, I'm thinking about not talking to this girl anymore. There's something weird about her, this and that, the other. And it wasn't more than 2 or 3 minutes later, I get a text message from her that said, "Oh, you're not thinking about not talking to me anymore, are you?" And he turned white as a ghost as he saw that text message.
Listen, Lucas, we've got 20-some minutes left. I'm going to try to take some callers. I have another caller. Can you answer if we get some good callers? Let's answer some questions, okay? Let's see. We have caller 331. How are you?
Hey, Francis.
Hey, who are you?
RBN.
What's going on?
Nothing. Somebody keeps changing my name to unidentified.
I have no idea who's doing that. Are you identified?
And then Nighthawk's got some attitude about, go talk to Geeks or Geek Squad or whoever the hell they are.
Say, do you have a question about space, or are you just playing?
I thought the guest might. I thought he was talking about Denver Airport for a minute.
Well, I was directing it to him. Lucas had done a very long documentary on some of the conspiracy, actually some of the activities of our powers that be, buildings, bunkers, and one of the topics that he covered was the Denver International Airport. I know, and I'm just reporting from what I know, it's full of murals. It has iconography, whatever that word is, icons out in the front, out in the back. They've had they've had Horus there. They've had them all there. So it's pretty crazy. And in fact, they got a street named Penis, and it's in the shape of a swastika. So talk about that.
Yeah, wait. Hey, ask them if Bohemian Grove has anything to do with those freaks that built that airport. What are they going to do downstairs? Are they going to do like a black mass? And then after all the stuff hits the fan, are they going to go up there and start checking out that work or what?
I can answer that. Of course they are. If they're in that stuff, if they're part of that group, of course they are. We cannot forget that there are those groups, whether there's 5 of them or 2 of them or 1 of them. Somebody's going to be dancing on all our graves, or thinking they are, at least. You know that. Listen, thanks for calling in. I don't know what Nighthawk's doing to you. Just keep being nice, and you'll probably get back real quick. We'll talk to you later.
No, all right.
Well, when it comes to that Bohemian Grove, you look at the ceremony they do. It's called the cremation of care. Okay, now what is that? That's like it's like the elite's conscience. Okay, whether people want to admit this or not, they're freaking people just like all of us. And although some of them may be evil to the absolute core, a lot of them still have a conscience, and they still feel bad about keeping this information to themselves while they go prepare, and they still also feel bad for their eternal soul because they're not sure whether there is a heaven or a hell or not, and so they do this ceremony because to try and get rid of their care of the whole thing.
Well, listen, I get the feeling that humans start off human until they get a personality, ego, id, and everything else that goes along with it. Our personality is derived first from tradition, family life, and then goes back to tradition, what we're most comfortable with. I don't see reasonably how some of these rich folks, they're rich, they get indoctrinated or asked to be in these groups because they want to put their money, their power into a good place. I can see how people can be sucked into the worst case scenarios because those people who have the money are no real smarter than we are. I mean, we all start with the same brain matter, basically, and then from our lifetimes we grow into who we are. You have families, whether you want to encompass, you have large families, Rothschilds, whoever. It appears if you look back, a lot of our leaders all come from the same family. They already were talking about the prince and his new bride, how somehow they're related. I totally believe that. I totally believe that there are really people out there doing procedures, seances, whatever you will, occult features, but that's not me. That's not what turns on this regular guy. Here I am, hopefully more like the listeners than those people in those crazy groups who are struggling for a little peace in our life, who are struggling to find out what, apparently some of us, some people are trying to keep from us. Basically, I want to be happy. I don't need a whole lot of money. I don't need a tight group. I don't need the end of the world to be happy. I just need to know that I'm being active, and by being active, I'm somehow helping myself out. And I just want the listeners to, no matter what you hear or how crazy it sounds, that story or that hypothesis or research may never go away because it gets listened to. It's up to you to know where you are and know who you are and to know how to get yourself out of trouble because, man, nobody's going to save you. And this whole save the world philosophy that's really centered the welfare state of the United States, the dependence of our government is going to crumble the lives around the people who were not a part of it. I mean, I hate the trouble that somebody else starts. And unfortunately, the biggest trouble that we're all in was started by somebody else. But yet we have to grab onto it, find out where we fit into it, and find some peace in that. I don't find peace in producing a whole bunch of worrisome facts for people to have to just question about. What we're doing with Lucas tonight is going over the 188-day cycle, his opinions. If you don't know Lucas before, you should go find out and watch his other videos because he's done a lot of research. I believe Lucas, and I'll say it again, would be open to the fact of new information coming to his research table and him assimilating that into his beliefs. Some other people are unable to do that. Some other people are only interested in you following what they believe. Don't believe what somebody else believes. Believe what you believe through your own research. And you can agree with that, right, Wayne? I mean, it's just so basic. I hate to have to say it. And I end up saying it maybe once or twice a show. It's on the listener's lap. It's on your lap, listeners.
Yeah. In fact, I've always been of the, right after I went on Coast to Coast back in February, I was asked to go on Fox News and different, what was the other show, Entertainment Tonight or some kind of thing like that. I forget. Anyway, I turned all that down because, see, my own personal philosophy is that, and this may sound a little harsh in certain ways, but I don't personally believe that everybody deserves this information. I think that people that are seeking it are the ones that should get their hands on it, and the ones that are, I don't want a bunch of people that are, so enthralled with watching Britney Spears and American Idol and all that. I don't want them jumping on this bandwagon because then they're going to suck up all the resources of the people that are actually trying to trying to get prepared for this. And I personally don't think that a lot of people don't deserve it. If they think that watching American Idol is more important than the possibility of their future, and they want to, go around with those comments of tinfoil hat and all this stuff, I mean, hey, let them drown. I mean, I'm sorry, it's the way I've had to come over the years, because at first I felt, inclined to try and tell everybody. I was like, yeah. And then I started to realize that you can either waste your time trying to talk to somebody who doesn't believe you, and you could spend months and months and months and months of your time trying to just get them to believe that 9/11 was an inside job, or else you can find the people that already are in tune to this stuff who don't give you a bunch of flack about it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it when the situation is like this. You interact with somebody who really doesn't believe what you say, but then they get mad at you for stopping to interact with them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Well, I've learned a way to deal with people. I've learned an awesome way over the years, because, I mean, there was a time back in 2006, I think it was, where I jumped on an Austin City bus and I said, 9/11's an inside job. Who wants to disagree with me? And, that was back then. Nowadays, I don't really care. If you don't believe me, it's no skin off my back. I've already dealt with those ghosts and don't even care about that. So it's everybody's individual responsibility to do this research, and it's not anybody's responsibility to do all the research for you. Everybody wants you to a lot of these debunkers, they'll say something like, they'll come up with some kind of hypothesis and then tell you that you need to prove yourself. When they're the ones that are trying to prove you wrong, they're the ones that need to go out and prove you wrong.
Yeah, I know those too. Listen, I have a great question, and this is going to tell me something whether we're more alike than I thought or not. If the shit hits the fan, are you a single unit or are you a group unit?
I'm just me.
Yeah, that's what I said too. I'm avoid. Nobody's going to find me for a good long time, for 188 days.
Yeah, I'm just me. I've got 6 to 8 months worth of food stored up. I've got, I spent a lot of time building a van with, it's got everything I need in it. I basically prepared on this myself, and at first, it started out with pretty much everybody I knew except for one of my friends disagreed with me about 9/11, and over the years, pretty much every one of them has come full circle and said, I've been a goofball, I was wrong about that, I'm sorry. So now it's a lot different. Now when it comes to dealing with people that are obtuse about it, I just, hey, deal with it yourself.
I think where I'm at personally, and not that you asked or anything, I'm at Building 7, and that got me believing, just because some of the other technical side of it, and even today I was hearing the miniature nuclear detonations that may or may not have occurred. I may or may not, because that's the kind of stuff that kind of is hard for me to take on. But seeing the building fall straight down, Building 7, it proved to me that someone was interacting with that building, that was somehow planned.
Well,
and if that was somehow, and I'm just thinking, if that was somehow planned, then it all was planned.
One of the things, one of the biggest forms of disinformation is basically muddying the water. When you do a conspiracy or something like that, what you want to do is you want to have a whole bunch of people pump out a bunch of different conspiracy theories. So, let me give you a perfect instance. The whole no planes theory about 9/11, that no planes hit the World Trade Centers, okay? That was promoted by some guy named Nico Hopt and some other guy named Killtown, and they set up YouTube accounts, and within a month, each of them had like 250 different YouTube videos on their channels, and they were pumping this down everybody's throats when it was total, absolute malarkey. Okay, I've talked to people, average everyday people who are not disinformation, just regular people, New Yorkers, who saw the second plane hit. Okay, so what they do is they muddy down the water so that you can't see anything. You can't, all you can see is just a brown puddle of water with no clear information in front of you.
Well, and see, and here I am also, because that kind of just, that pulls in my friend Richard C. Hoagland. I don't know if you've ever had interactions with Richard C. Hoagland. I know that most of the public, though they listen to everything he says, they get some sort of grasp of understanding that most of what he says is not coming true. And when I look at it, when I'm trying to look out in space, I have a hard time keeping focused when I'm having to run over to an asteroid that may be an alien ship. So I know, that was one of the basics for all of this. Was I feel like a large group is running toward multiple sources of information, and here I feel like I need to turn around, step back, and view the whole thing again to find out what's really going on. I still feel that I don't have a grasp on exactly what's going on, even after talking to you. I may understand more about where your research is, but I'm left in this kind of wait and see thing, and I would rather know more and wait less.
Yeah, well, that's the $100,000 question there.
But that's why we do it. That's why I'm here, though. I mean, I guess the moment we stop, I stop, you stop, even Terrell, the moment he stops and nobody's out there giving us any information, then we're really kind of. But I don't think that'll ever come now. There's too many people and too many people willing to fool us. Because there are people out there whose main objective, I think they do it intentionally to make some presentation, sit back and laugh at those who may be interacting with it and actually giving it some credibility. And I believe that's true too. I believe there's people making information, putting it on YouTube, and then laughing at everybody who goes and interacts with it. I don't know.
They're the same as the people that create viruses. The same exact kind of people, the ones that will create a virus and unleash it on the public. They never know who the virus infects. All they know is that it's out there infecting innocent people, and it's the same exact mentality. It's just
it's that super id. I was talking. I brought up again the id, the ego, and whatever. And somebody called me an egomaniac. I said no, it's all id. But then I went and I found out what the id was all about. The id isn't very good. It's all about self-gratification. So it's a super id, which means when you're only totally interested in your gratifying yourself and not giving a darn about anybody else is when your ego is just shut down and you're just running off some animal instinct. And personally, I think it's pretty disgusting if you're led just by your id, because it has no concern about anybody else.
Well, we've also come to a time now where everything is so politically correct, and I want to bring up something my friend had said to me, which I thought was brilliant. My friend Rich, he said, he's talking about political correctness and about Star Wars action figures, and he goes, well, they got to make laws about kids choking on a Star Wars action figure, and he said, if a kid is going to choke on a Star Wars action figure, he probably wasn't going to make it anyway. So it's just, we're living in this crazy time with all this mumbo-jumbo information flying around, and everybody trying to make you feel bad about this and that and the other. And here's something that, I wanted to bring up that everybody should watch if you want to know how deep the manipulation of your mind really goes. You can go, I think you can watch this maybe on YouTube. It's a PBS documentary called Merchants of Cool. It's a little long. It's 4 hours long. But what they did is they showed that when Viacom first came out, when MTV first came out in the 80s, what they did is they actually sent hundreds of representatives out to people's houses, and they monitored their children. They paid the families to live in their house for a couple months, and they actually monitored the children, everything they did, every time they got excited during a song and all that. And what they did is after a couple years, they took all this information back, put it into a database, and ran it through computer systems, which came out to the one conclusion that people that are not happy with their lives will buy more than twice as many products of people that are happy, because they're always going to be buying perfume and stuff to lose weight. And this. So what Viacom decided to do at that moment was to only promote bands and movies and things that promoted a negative mentality on Americans, to make women feel fat, to make men feel inferior, to basically break you down so that you're always wanting to buy more stuff to make yourself feel better.
Kind of sounds like a protocol.
The life of Elijah. And we've covered some great things. Truths that have just transformed my
The group's benefit means the public's loss, and somehow, whether it be in having a harder time distinguishing the truth or not even getting the chance to distinguish the truth, because everything that's being told to you is a lie. And I do feel that if there is an undercurrent somewhere in our society which pervades all types of reporting, because even me being a totally unattached reporter here is somehow subconsciously manipulated by my history and my environment and the media that I read or listen to and watch. And there is a potential that all of it is owned by a small cultural group, a small physical group, and is intended to basically weaken our underpinnings of our social consciousness, our morality. I mean, technology and advancement is one thing, but as we advance technologically, we are literally regressing emotionally and in our brains. I think we have a new class of uninformed people who have all the right tools in front of them, physical, computer, microphone, a way to get intricate information, but in the end, when it gets accessed into the gray matter, it's not being processed properly. And then when that person goes out and reports to other people what they just learned, I feel sorry for the people who are listening to people like that. If there's anything you're doing with research, you're probably in a great place, because freedomslips.com is a listener-supported radio station, and that means that we're not sponsored by the corporate money machine. Because as soon as you get past this format of speech, or the protest speech, you are lending yourself to being getting your information from a paid source. I'm not paid. I have no agenda. I want to try to learn just as much about what's going on around me, hopefully, as the listeners do. And I talk to people like Lucas and like Terrell and like everybody I do. I get kind of angry with Terrell because he refuses to learn, but then I'm able to have a great conversation and learn something. I learned and reconfirmed for myself. I didn't come on the show and say, hey, Lucas, tell me all the earthquakes and how bad they were and when they happened. No. This morning I said, I know Lucas is coming on and we're going to talk about 188 days. I went to the place where the information is. Yes, USGS. I went and accessed all the information, and I did a little research for myself so that I could come here and not make a fool of myself and say, oh, Lucas, you're just, you're crazy, Lucas, because he's not. And on top of that, he seems more rational, where he can talk to me, and if I bring him some information, I'm surely going to get a response that I appreciate a lot more than somebody who just says, no way.
Well, yeah, of course. That's what I'm all about, is finding out the information. I had just put up a video yesterday or the day before. It's called the Intervention Remix, and basically what I did is McCain had said when he was being questioned, he actually called the Kennedy assassination an intervention, and then switched it. He said intervention or tragedy, and so somebody had said that I dubbed that word intervention in there. And that goes against everything I stand for. I just deleted them. I get so pissed when people accuse me of doing things that aren't true. And I just deleted them off there because, I mean, it's like I have no reason to concoct anybody. Instead of calling somebody disinformation, actually do the research first. Actually go find the source video, and you'll see he said it. It's really clear, but some people they're bandwagon jumpers, man. They want to jump on the first thing that comes along.
Okay, another question. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
You're doing good? I like to ask that every now and again, just drop it on people just to see what they say, I think that anything that, when we get an opportunity like you and me, we really haven't taught before, I just show you some respect and appreciation by asking you how the heck you are, man.
Well, I'm doing better now that I have the burden of living in an area where there are shells. See, Austin, Texas is my favorite town in the whole world. I've got a lot of friends there that I've known for longer than 25 years. They say people are lucky to have one friend. I've got at least 6 from that area that I've known for over 25 years. And so I really hated leaving that area. But the problem is that there's shells on the ground, that there are seashells laying on top of the ground in Austin, Texas that are not fossilized. Now, how the heck is a seashell laying on top of the ground? It's not a fossil. I mean,
it's at the bottom of the ocean. I'm in Houston. I'm in Houston. I'm closer to the coast, so I feel you on that. I don't think I've seen any shells, or maybe I have. I think I have, actually.
If you go out and you take a shovel with you and just start turning over some dirt, go out to an area outside of Houston, and it won't take long for you to find little clamshells laying all over the ground. They're in there. Some of them are, a couple inches underneath the topsoil, but they're there, and they're not. The key is they're not fossils. See, fossils are from millions of years ago, from the actual objects being replaced by minerals like calcium and that sort of thing. But when you find seashells that are not fossils, that tells you they're only thousands of years old.
Well, you're going to come back to Texas for a visit, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I was actually supposed to come back today, but I couldn't afford it. My friends are all having a big poker game down there. They wanted me to come to kind of a reunion thing, but I just couldn't afford to go, so.
Well, listen, I know about digging holes. We're building an observatory down here outside of Houston. I dug a big old hole to put our permanent pier pipe inside for the 11-foot dome. We're going to be having some events next year, and you are definitely on the list for first light, whether you make it or not. It doesn't make a difference, but know that you are appreciated and are on the list for first light at Cosmic Obsession Observatory, because that's some of the stuff besides just sitting here and getting on the radio and doing the best I can researching. I mean, I spend a lot of time physically with my hands to the ground making telescopes and telescope buildings. And really, I must say also that if it were not for my father-in-law, Bob, who has become my best friend lately, if it were not for his support, which basically means it's Bob's goal to have the big observatory and have a reason to look into space. I'm using this opportunity to share it with all the listeners, and it turns out to be a benefit. Listen, I think we're getting to the end of the show. I think someone's going to come in and step on us somewhere along the line. So I want to thank you, and I'm going to ask you to come back on again one time if that's okay.
Hey, sure, I appreciate it. It's been great.
Wayne, I'll talk to you later on Facebook.
All right, take care.
Bye.